So we wanted to keep one slide to just get people a little bit pumped up after the break. So who's seen this Jerry Maguire movie? Raise of hands. Who's okay? Can we do show me the money from the back and have it here so I can hear you because I know you can hear me. Show me the money. More, come on. Once more. Show me the money. Let's do it.
You should have been first session after lunch.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Awesome. So my name is Ajit Ghuman. I am the co-founder and CEO of Monetizely. We are a pricing strategy consulting firm. A little about me. So a lot of people ask me, where are you from? So I sometimes struggle to give that answer because technically I'm Punjabi, but culturally I'm Fauji. So 2 generations of people in the army. I've been raised in 12 cities in India, came here for grad school at Stanford. All right, so that is me with my co-founder. We went to Lucasfilms last week, Akhil, so he's also recording, and that is the book that we have printed. And we have some copies of this outside. Once the session finishes, we'll be distributing it. So the agenda for today is to figure out, first we want to figure out what is the impact of pricing, because many times pricing is discussed from a very price point centric discussion, and even earlier today the discussion was about what should the price point be, and I'm actually going to discuss it the last in this session because in my opinion it is a structural problem that we need to get right. And everybody's raising, so in order to raise money you need to get pricing right, to get the right leverage and to get the right valuation for your company. We'll discuss how pricing evolves with companies. Okay, so this is, there are a few VC firms that publish a lot on pricing. One of them is OpenView Ventures. Bessemer Ventures also posts a lot. So both of them did a study. I'm showing one study here. So they did a survey across companies of different stages, and they did the impact of a pricing revamp exercise for these companies. So you'll see that the average ARR impact for pricing is around 12%. And the max it goes to is about 50% for when the pricing exercise was done. But not only does it impact the ARR, it also impacts the net retention rate. And why do we care about that? Because we want to get funded. We want to go to the seed round. We want to go to Series A. The investor cares about it. Many times if I'm talking to VC firms or PE firms, they're even more worried than the founder about getting the pricing right because they know it's a structural thing. It's not that you're just going to change price and it's the one-time thing. If you get it right, then churn reduces, net retention increases. It's an alignment problem rather than it's a price point problem is what we will discover later on. It's mostly positive. I have consulted a lot of companies. I have spoken to the people at Simon Kutcher when I was writing my book. Around 80% of companies are always leaving money on the table. And early stage founders are always hesitant to raise prices, hesitant to change pricing. So there's always some money on the table. By the time it comes to a point where somebody's doing a pricing revamp, there is a recognition that there is something wrong happening. So this delta that I showed you, if you see Simon Kutcher studies, they are ranging from 20 to 80% increase in ARR. And that is not only for small companies, even $500 million companies see that sort of impact. So the first point is pricing is very impactful, but it is also it hurts a lot if you get it wrong. And especially if you assume that I know how to do my pricing, and you're focusing just on the price point, which is, by the way, not only an early stage founder bias, it is a late stage founder bias also. You'll see companies like Insta, there's a chatbot company, I was forgetting the name next to Zendesk, but there are a couple of companies that just raised prices over the last year. And most of them did not change their pricing structure. What they did is they changed the price point. And when you just change the price point, you start to fight with more churn issues and unpredictability. But if you look at the lineup structurally and you change your lineup, which is the set of packaging that you have, then that need not happen, and you can actually navigate around these times which were high interest rate environments where you want to generate more free cash flow. So the framework that we teach in our course, the framework that I've used in all my consulting engagements that has not failed me is this 5-step framework for pricing. I want to take you through how to do pricing across these 5 steps. The last one, not so much because it's mostly operational and it's about systems, so we'll stick on strategy. But I believe that if you stick to this sequentially, you will find the right pricing. Whether it be a pricing revamp or whether it be a pricing diagnostic that you're doing, you'll be able to figure out where the issue is. Uh, just before I start, I want to mention that pricing many times in a company, especially like it's a more established company, somebody will say, hey, we have this issue, there's a lot of discounting happening, our pricing is not right. Oh, or this competition is doing something, our pricing is not right. But I would actually say, if you did not come to this session, you should just focus on what the previous two sessions talked about, because all pricing problems are almost never pricing problems, they're positioning problems, and they're ICP misidentification problems in all consulting engagements I do. So what you can do is, let's say downstream here, you find out, I have a pricing problem. My goal is to make you go upstream and start with goals and segments. So number one is, no, back. Define clearly what is the goal for you. Are you solving a problem? What problem are you trying to solve with pricing? Write that down and make sure your whole executive team is aligned before you start a project. And it depends on which stage your company is into, because by the time a company IPOs, they'll have 7 to 8 large pricing revamps done. And it's an iterative process, but ideally they'll be tweaking every quarter, they'll do some tweaks. So it is important to understand where in the journey are you, because your strategy will depend on your position as a company. Then segmentation. So we had the discussion about ICP. As a product marketer in the Valley across multiple companies, I have the same message. If you get your segmentation right, if you truly understand the customer, then everything flows from there. You can design good packaging, you can design the right metric, you can design the right price point. But if you didn't attend last session, then you're screwed, because everything else is not going to work. So really get the goals and segmentation right, define the ICP, write down your ICP. Even if it is a hypothesis, you can always change it. It doesn't have to be a line in concrete, but just have the ICP in mind. Once you have that, then you can design packages that fit to those segments. It's a sort of the analogy I give is, if you're going to buy a car, and I like the BMW brand, you already sort of know, am I going to buy a 5 Series or a 3 Series or a 7 Series, or nowadays we like the Z4. But it's never about, I'm going to go there and now I'm going to figure out what segment I am. Like, the customer is not confused about who they are. And so when they see the offer in the market, they need to see, oh yes, this is for me, and this is exactly for me. If that does not happen, what happens? They will come and see the plans. They may say, okay, this sounds like you are selling this to me too cheap. I am an enterprise buyer. I don't take you seriously, which was a discussion that we had earlier. Or it could be a mid-market buyer that says, this is too expensive. Let me severely discount your packages. And then your sales process further goes for a toss. So having segments aligned to packaging is very important. I'll cover this mistake later on in the presentation, but one of the biggest mistakes people do is they are enamored by this concept called good, better, best. And they'll start the pricing by saying, okay, let me create good, better, best and go from there. And have no thought process of all the work they did for segmentation and ICP before. That is not going to help, because then all you're doing is slotting features into your good, better, best tiers, assuming you have a SaaS product and not a different product. But we can discuss other positioning and packaging approaches as well. But when you do that, it will not fit the segment. And if it doesn't fit the segment, you will not know why your pricing is not working, right? So it needs to be custom tailored to the segment. After that, you can do psychological hacks like having a filler package somewhere so that somebody is forced to pick a bigger plan. But first, start with the fundamentals. Once you've figured out the packaging, then you figure out the pricing metric. What is the pricing metric? There is so much debate right now in SaaS about, should you have usage-based pricing? Should you have user-based pricing? What sort of metric do you have? So OpenAI has token-based pricing. Amazon has storage-based pricing. Salesforce has user-based pricing. There is named user licensing. There is concurrent user licensing. You need to figure out what is the right metric that aligns the relationship with you and the buyer, and not be dogmatic about it. I gave an example of a VC earlier, but even I see VCs becoming dogmatic about, 2021, let's all usage-based pricing. Then now 2023, no, we're not sure anymore. So it's never what is happening in the market. It's always what is happening in your business. And then, so far, I have not discussed price point. Now comes the price point, that for the package that you've designed, for the pricing metric associated with that package, now you choose the price point based on your go-to-market strategy, based on your competitive positioning. You test that out in the market, and then you select the price point that works. Right? Now, the example given earlier today was about the price point, but the it did not talk about packaging or pricing metric earlier. So if you had not thought about packaging, if you had not thought about the segment, automatically you came to the answer that I am going to give this to you for $20,000. But that was an enterprise buyer. Had you already thought about the segment that you're going to deal with, you would have known that I am going to give them a different package. This is how much these guys generally charge. And I would never have even thought about giving a 20,000 offer, right? So that discussion was about the price point, but I'm showing you the things that are hidden and the conversations that need to happen before that number is even discussed. And then finally, it's operationalization. This may be less relevant for smaller companies, but larger companies, let's say more than 5 million, more than 10 million ARR, definitely like Series B stage, this is a big problem. When I was at Twilio, we were trying to do usage-based pricing for 2.5 years, and we couldn't because we had internal billing systems that we could not change. So even the best laid price of mice and men do not come true if your engineering team asks you to get lost. So you have to instrument, you have to create billing systems, you have to have CPQ, you have to make sure the invoice gets to the customer. And as much as you want to innovate in pricing, that is how much technical debt you take on in operationalization, and you may never be able to do it. So just make sure whatever strategy you come up with, you can actually implement. And the best strategy is not the most effective one sometimes. All right, so with that, I want to focus, I will go through step by step and just start with the goals thing. So there are a few goals on this slide. I just want to get a raise of hands. What is a good goal according to you when you are starting off on a pricing exercise? Do you resonate with one? Do you resonate with more? Do you have other ideas?
Reduce the churn and make sure that you get more and the clients are expanding then.
Okay. All? Okay. Okay, good. We'll come to that.
Would value be a partner? Like, would value their experience and also that defines what the goal is?
Okay, yes. Any others?
I think instantly one of this point will be suppose increase revenue, but in the long term, like say 6 months or then some other effect will come.
Yes, okay. Next slide. So in 2008, before I came here, I read this book that made me even apply for grad school and everything, that I said, okay, I want to come to the Bay Area, which is Jeffrey Moore's book, Crossing the Chasm. Have you guys read it? Raise your hands if you have. So I highly recommend. It's like a complete cult classic. And he here gives the example of how companies grow. First, you have an early market. You have early adopter customers. Then you sort of get stuck in this chasm sort of phase around 5-10 million in ARR, where you're trying to get to other markets. Your early market is maybe exhausting, or early adopters are exhausting, and you want to find the risk-averse people. And then so your goals start to change as you're doing that. Earlier on, you wanted more market share. Later on, you wanted more revenue predictability. You are going and pitching to investors. They are saying, where is the money going to come from? Later on, still, you are thinking about IPOing. I was at a company that was sort of pre-IPO when I left the company, and we had flipped the whole market. Now, this was a company called Medallia. When the company started, nobody knew about this category called customer experience management. By the time I had left, it was an established category. Forrester was covering it. There were other competitors in the space. It was one of Sequoia's biggest investment. The Qualtrics was another big investment. So just customers started to come. Now, once the category is established, customers come to you. And so the goal changes. The goal becomes, how do we sell faster rather than price point or maximizing the price point? It becomes more important how to sell faster. I'll show you a Zoom case study of what was happening at Zoom during the pandemic, where this became important. And then finally, there is commoditization. So once there's a big company, it's post-IPO, maybe it starts to get acquired by a private equity company. What is happening there is that they've run out of steam on their innovation. They had a success, they have some cash cow, but there are so many new competitors in the space. So one example is DocuSign. When they started, they were one of the leaders in e-signature, but there are so many Indian companies now in e-signature and document signing. And so the price that they were charging for their pricing metric for signature was kept going down and down, and they had to innovate on other things. But those are the throes of this is the stage where they are facing challenges in. because now they have to figure out how do we price in a cannibalized, commoditized space, and how do we figure out new things to sell that will increase our market share. And by the way, there is a lot of talk of inflation right now. SaaS is #1 deflating industry. It always deflates. And since 20 years, software prices have always deflated. There is no inflation in SaaS, by the way. All price increases that you get is because people want free cash flow in their company and the CFO wants it because the market dynamic has changed. There is no inflation. Software is always cheap. So you will always get competition. Next slide. All right, so we will now come to the second point, which is packaging. So I already gave you this answer. The most common packaging mistake, in my opinion, is good, better, best. I've given this answer, but maybe somebody wants to, tell me this in your words. Why is good, better, best not a great option for packaging?
So in our case, we realized that this was not speaking to our ICP, so we changed our pricing names from personal, agencies, and enterprise.
Okay.
And that actually
Have 3 segments? Okay, so it was an alignment with your segmentation. Okay, got it. Anybody else? Please.
So it confuses the user unnecessarily, I believe, because
Okay.
the client needs to think about which one I should get. Features may work differently for different.
And how many segments do you have?
3.
3 segments. And those specific people, when they see the 3 plans, why do they feel that it is not for them?
Because it's different. The segments are not based on the features. Their segments are based on how they are going to use the software. So
Yeah.
It's for them. Either
They don't care about the segment features that much. Okay, got it.
I don't know if you have this built in, but the economists did this concept called decoy pricing, where
Yeah.
you kind of have an upsell built in, and
Yeah.
it almost incentivizes you to go for the.
Yeah.
Essentially, it's a choice between two and one.
Yeah. The decoy, I'm not, so by the way, psychological hacks I'm not covering in this presentation at all. I'm just talking about fundamentals. I understand decoy, I understand what economist does, but that is also my gripe with all pricing literature, is that never talks about fundamentals. It always talks about the jazzy thing. So I'm not criticizing you, I'm criticizing the literature. So my experience with this has been, in my company, I was at a Series C stage Excel-backed company called Narvar. It has an Indian founder. I'll give you the case study later. Also in my book, there is a Gainsight case study. So in those examples, what happens is that if you just take this model and you apply this to your company, but this is not proportional to your segmentation, then a customer who is, let's say, mid-market, whose middle plan is not suiting them, will go to the top plan, say, middle plan, I'm not getting what I need, okay? So, salesperson, give me the top plan and severely discount it. So what is going to happen? Your middle plan will never get selected. Your top plan will be always severely discounted. You're going to have shelfware, features that are never being used. And when this customer grows, they already have these features, so they're not going to pay for any upsell or cross-sell. So you buy I'm just saying packaging is an important decision, and it will bite you if you don't think about it properly and if you just copy templates from competitors or from the market. Because you blocked your upsell, you undermine the packaging, and then you're discounting severely. So your sales team, if you have a direct sales team, will be like, we are going to do 50-60% discount always. And then it's hard to rein in your sales team after that also. Okay, next slide. So within packaging, there is basically, when I teach the course, we have more options, but given the time, I'm limiting this. There is sort of three options for you. On one spectrum are the sort of Netflix SaaS, so Netflix is also a SaaS company, is one side where you have a large market and you want to reach the whole market with one solution, like you have to sell to the whole world. On the other side are, let's say, enterprise companies selling to financial services companies, selling to insurance companies and banks, where every deal is bespoke, because if Bank of America is giving me 5 million, JP Morgan is going to give me 10 million for the same product. Generally, it's always the same product, it's not much difference at all. So you're always trying to custom scope, custom sell, have a la carte packaging, and really try to maximize the monetization value capture from the market. Those are two ends of the spectrum. In the middle of the spectrum are most SaaS companies, where they have, they're selling to a market. It may not be the widest market. So things like good, better, best work. but good, better, best I'm using as a proxy for tiers. You may have 1 tier, 2 tier, you may have 3 or more, depending on the number of segments you're trying to cater to. But this is just the paintbrush, if you will. This is what you have available, right? So instead of being dogmatic about the good, better, best, I'm saying you have all these tools, you have your market, understand what your market is, and then then figure out what the packaging should be for your market. What are you trying to do? You are sort of maximizing the area under the curve. Let's say if the x-axis has all of the companies, some of them are going to be big customers, some of them are going to be small customers. We've all, as Indians, we are good at math. You are trying to solve for the area under the curve. And you are trying to solve for sales efficiency. So by having packages, it allows for sales efficiency. By having a la carte packaging, your sales efficiency is going to be lower. By having this Netflix-esque packaging, you have infinite sales efficiency because there is no sales team. So you are trying to figure out a balance between your sales efficiency and how to capture value in the market. That is the purpose of packaging. And you have to design it such that at some point, it's a good trade-off, right? And then when I showed you the goal slide, for bigger companies where the market is coming, you are simplifying the packaging so that you can sell faster. But when you are, let's say, Series A stage or between Series A and B, you may be expanding the SKUs in your product so that you can capture more value. So the yo-yo effect of simplicity and complexity will always be happening, depending on the stage of the company. Larger companies like, let's say, VMware cry a lot about SKU explosion. They say, we have 40,000 SKUs, we don't know what we're doing. Now we're going to merge and simplify. So there is no one right answer. It's always going to be contextual on where the company is. So the things to keep in mind when you're designing packaging is, number one, is there a fit to the segment? When the person, ICP, comes to you, will they think that, okay, this is fitting me well, number one. Number two, do you have upside capture? So for the larger customers, or you have these plans, but are you able to get all of the upside from the market? Earlier in the year, I did a study with a smaller company, just a $1 million or $2 million ARR company, Web3 cybersecurity. And they had a hypothesis of what their segments was. Once we started to do research and started talking to customers, there was a minute sliver of customers that said, we'll pay infinite. We want your security researchers, we want the best, and we don't even care about your current packaging and pricing. So those whales are going to make their business, even though they may not be the number of sample size of customers. So it's important to capture the upside to make this, because many companies, you will be surprised, have sort of this exponential curve of customers where a small sliver of customers in the valley are paying a lot, and then the companies come to SaaSter and say, I have a bazillion customers, and bazillion customers are paying me nothing, but 1% are paying me a lot of money. That happens a lot. So I like to, as a pricing person, I want people to make money, so I would like the packaging design so that you capture the upside. And then, are they differentiated? If they are too similar, one dead giveaway of bad packaging is you have a few set of features and you have 3 plans, and your Pro and Elite are looking the same, or you're giving too much away in your freemium, which is number one founder problem in PLG motions, that we always give away too much because we are a little afraid of whether we are adding value or not. And which may be true initially, but you have to change it later on. So packages need to be differentiated. If they're not differentiated, you need to think of, do we have enough innovation, or do we need to reduce packages? Do they allow for upsell and cross-sell, which is the scalability and growth point? All of the add-ons in your packages are what you will go back and sell to them, and other plans you will sell to them, other products you will sell. But many times I run into customers where what they're doing is, they merge their pricing metric and packaging and say, up to so many unit consumption on this middle plan, and then you want to consume more, just a little bit more, go to my Elite plan, which is 2x expensive. And customers saying, I am a good mid-market customer for you. If I want to consume more, you're saying I have to pay you all this more amount of money. If I just want to consume a little bit more, you're not letting me have any overages on this product. So be careful about that, because you want the mid-market customer to remain a mid-market customer and still grow. and you want the enterprise customers to still grow, and you want, once they have graduated to the next level, be able to then pick the next one. So it needs to be flexible enough for them to do that. And then one point is to recognize the difference between existing and new customers. So you may do all the strategy for your new customers, but it's not going to work for your existing customers. And many times there are questions that, what do we do? Do we grandfather them? Should we change the pricing? And this question always comes if you've not been doing annual increases. If you have been doing some increases, it will not be this sort of situation. But if you are at a point where if you've not changed pricing in many years, and now you're saying, oh, those guys are not paying me enough, and I gave them a good deal. Well, they may still churn just because you are increasing pricing 40, 50%, even if it was cheaper than competition, because they will feel like, I trusted you when you were a small company, and now you're a big company, or you arm twisting me. So you may have to have a different price book for new existing customers. At Narvar, we had a different SKU structure for our existing customers, and we didn't force them to go to another plan if we didn't have to. Okay, so this is the Narvar case study for when I joined the company. So this is some of the things I was showing. I'm going to show you diagrammatically. So the context is that when I joined was around 35 million ARR company selling an e-commerce SaaS product, which is like if you order something in America from a Nike or a Cole Haan, Macy's, you'll get a tracking. Like your order is being built, your order is shipped, your order is on its way, it's delivered. You'll get these email notifications on this track page. So this was their product. They had hired a CRO after a round of funding, and the CRO came, and the history was the sales team did not follow any packaging. They were like, we'll do whatever, which is fine till they got to that point. But then the CRO came and said, we are going to have these cookie cutter SMB packages. But the sales team never sold like that. She changed this whole thing in a matter of months. After that, ASP's average selling prices reduced 15 to 20%. Sales team revolted. And then the CRO left. And that's the time I was interviewing for the company. I was not even doing pricing at that time. And I had to fix this mess. So I'll give you an example of what was happening. Next slide. So this is for one of their product lines. There were 5 packages. And these are sort of, I would say, SMB-ish packages, no matter what segment the customer was. And if you look at the mid-market package here, you'll see 2 emails, 2 domains. If you see the enterprise package, you'll see 4 domains, can buy more, enterprise plus, other stuff. So the people in SMB and mid-market, let's say you're a merchant or a retailer, you need to send 5 emails to the customer that their package is arrived and on its way. And you're saying, no, here is only 2 emails. If you want to send more notifications, it's 2 or 3x the price. So customers were not buying because this is not how they bought ever. And the sales team said this doesn't work. High discounting started to happen. All of the classic signs of packaging not working were happening here. So we had to reconcile this. I spoke with all of the reps, the mid-market reps, the enterprise rep. How did they sell? What the pressure was that the CEO was facing, because the CEO was getting some other new thing from the VCs, and the head of sales sold differently, but the CEO was not the seller. Let's be clear, the head of sales knew how to sell. So that convergence in what do we have to do to simplify, standardize, and have consistent pricing had to happen, because we still had to get the sales team to have consistent pricing, but have the packaging such that it was flexible enough to work with our motion, right? So just an example of how packaging fails. But if you get it right, then it is a alignment mechanism. It allows for everything else to happen. Okay, we'll stop there. Any questions on the packaging before we keep going?
Sorry, so you said bad, good, best, not good.
I'm saying dogmatic decisions are not good.
Got it. But for folks that are, selling to SMB, is there a sort of suggestion on how to then?
I think my basic suggestion is start with having as many packages as you have segments. But it is not necessary that everybody has 3 segments.
So if you have 5 segments, you have 5 prices.
You may try. You should. If you have 5 segments, you should try. But I've never actually seen even larger companies have 5 segments.
Why do you think is the usage-based pricing not being?
It'll come to that. This is pricing metric number 3. I'm going to cover usage-based now. We've just touched packaging so far. Any other question on packaging? So I'm going to move out from packaging, but I'll say that all of the discourse in SaaS is about pricing metric. But packaging is where you're going to make the money.
One other question. So does product costing actually influence the packaging?
It will influence your price point, not the packaging. But packaging is about the capabilities you're offering, your offer to the customer. It will influence the price point, especially when it comes to new Gen AI offerings. The cost to serve the product is much higher, and this will influence this point. So let's start pricing metric. So now what we have done is we have figured out our segmentation, figured out ICP, figured out our goal for pricing. Then we have created packages or offers that are tailored to the segments. Next step is to figure out the right pricing metric. And this is where all of this debate around usage-based pricing is coming. Now, usage-based pricing is going to get far more relevant for other reasons. So historically, on the left side of this slide, pricing was more fixed and predictable. There was on-prem pricing with maintenance fees for, even before user base or SaaS models were a thing. Then companies like Salesforce changed that to basically user-based pricing on cloud, and that fixed license fee went away. And then more recently, on the right side, you had companies like Amazon offering infrastructure software on like PG&E or electricity. You use my storage, use my server capacity, and all of that. And then you have companies like OpenAI offering more usage-based pricing. So that is the spectrum: more less variable pricing metric to very variable pricing metric, like electricity. And the analogy I often do share in my courses is, it's like buying a car and driving a taxi, going in a taxi. Any person does both. You will buy a car, you may not even use it, especially in the pandemic. People want, in America, you need a car, but you may not drive it that much. But you'll still take an Uber, you'll still take a taxi. So it's not either or, it's always both. If you have a CRM sort of product, it's not going to be used every day. Many people don't even log into their CRMs. Even salespeople don't, unless they're like prompted. And then, so that is the case for application layer software. But if it is telephony software, it's being used every day. If it's infrastructure software, it's being used every day. That you can offer through usage-based pricing, because that is the usage. I'm not even talking about cost right now. Because this was a dilemma when I was at Twilio. We had a contact center product. I was running pricing for that. And the folks that had come in from Amazon had that dogma that this worked for Amazon, so it will work for Twilio. Well, it doesn't work like that, because I was the only one who said this is what their customers are doing. They don't log into your product, right? This is how less they log in. If you're going to make this change, you're going to lose half of your revenue. And the customers never even adopted. They said, this is not ever how we bought this product. So things may change in the era of AI. But all I'm trying to say is, you have a paintbrush. Depending on the nature of your product, you have to figure out the right pricing metric. And I will show you the factors to consider. Okay, next slide. Okay, question. What is your current pricing metric? Does anybody charge on usage-based pricing today?
So we are a business travel software, so it's per usage,
per book trip. Okay, got it.
Based on number of transactions. We are AP automation product. So
APM.
AP automation product.
Okay.
Based on the number of
Accounts payable. Okay, got it.
Similar to cloud, storage and bandwidth-based usage.
Okay.
It's based on both seat or number of document transactions.
Okay, makes sense.
We used to be on number of pieces, garments, but when we added categories, we realized that's a problem. So now then we move to percentage of value.
Okay, that's interesting.
outcome-based pricing, we can use that again. So we are working on outcome-based pricing.
Got it. Yeah, that's an interesting one. That's a very debatable. There's a lot of debate on outcome-based. We'll come to that if we have time. Yes.
So we do number of seats, but usage limitations. If overage happens, then we would have an add-on package.
Makes sense.
Number of product photo shoots being done.
Photo shoots. Okay. So it seems like there is a very maybe I don't even have to do this presentation, because you're already choosing something that works for your business. It's not a decision that is accidental, right? You know your product, you know what the customer wants. Sometimes there are misalignments, so I'll just share the factors that are helpful to go through. Some people know a couple of factors, some people miss a few, so I just want to cover at least all of the ones I look at. So the 7 factors that that I've looked at through my experience with other companies has been, first 3 are about your customer, what works for your customer. The next 3 are about what works for you. So the first is customer risk perception. Do they think you are a risky proposition? Early stage companies, many times, people don't take a bet on. And that's why they move to something like a usage-based pricing. You say, pay for what you use. If you like it, keep it. Ad conversion. Sometimes people will say ads. Only when we convert, you make money, then we will get the revenue. So early stage companies sometimes have to do that. So the question is, how risky does your buyer think you are? Second is mental anchors. I'll share an example of difference of customer service software. I used to, 5 years ago, I used to work with a company called HelpShift. They were Pune US company. And there was another company that started after, it was called Customer with a K. And they were also creating customer service software, but for retailers and merchants. So similar software. Historically, customer service software is sold on per agent basis. So customer, even they had some podcasts, they said, we wanted to innovate our pricing, but the customer, their customers, clients don't think any differently. They're always going to pay per agent. So that limits the ticket size for their software. If you're selling on the Salesforce ecosystem, everybody's going to always compare you to the 150 or 165 now dollar license that Salesforce has. But at that point, HelpShift suffered a lot after that. But at that point, HelpShift was making customer service chat software for gaming applications and was selling to product managers of companies like Supercell. So product manager said, okay, my metric can be 100,000 MAU, per 100,000 MAU, not by per agent. So the same thing that was being sold for 20,000 was now being selling for $2 million. And the product manager was fine, I have a big game. I need the help. It's an application that I can't build. I'm going to give you the money. So mental anchors change a lot. And we try to actually start a product in the Salesforce app ecosystem. And we're like, I don't know, like it's impossible because you can't have a good price point. And you keep fighting with people for lower and lower price points, even for a complex enterprise product. So anchoring, it is problematic, but you have to figure out whether the customer is anchored or not. If not, if it's blue ocean, then you have a lot more room to play with because then you can do outcome-based or then you can do other value-based methods and you can see what works for the customer. Now, third is obvious, but alignment with value. So customer needs to feel that as they win, they will pay you more, not if they're not winning. In my book, you'll read the example of mixed panels. So this is when I was writing what was happening in the company. They had some Medium posts on that as well, that they always, for product analytics, charge on a per event basis. But as they were going to more Fortune 100, Fortune 500 companies, the companies were saying that, hey, our events are going up, our bills are going up, but we are not winning. And we are not making more money. So they changed it at some point to monthly tracked users, to say when you have more users on your website, then you pay more. That is a better measure for alignment. So you can still have usage-based pricing and have the wrong metric if it is not aligned to the buyer. So these 3 are factors to look at from the customer's point of view. But it's not just about the customer, it's also about what works for you. So the next 3 are about what works for you. So what is the consumption pattern? I was giving you the example of taxi versus owning a car. That is like, what sort of product do you have? Does anybody even use your product? Because if they think your product is important, they may not use it, but still value it, and it will be a sticky product. Like a lot of ERP softwares, like there are a lot of things a company buys that says, we need this, but we may not use it. Like how much compliance software are you actually going to use? So some things are bought in a certain way. So you need to see how much is it being used. Next is the cost, which is the question that you were asking. Now in GenAI, there is so much development cost, but there is so much cost to serve these models. And that has also been the case in infrastructure as a service software. So their margins immediately can change. So if you do user-based pricing, this is why now none of the AI players, especially the enterprise players, are not offering per user. And the people who are saying, oh, this is free, everybody's sort of scratching their heads and saying, why are you offering this free? Because it's so expensive. Or how are you doing this so cheaply? So traditional application layer software is not that expensive. The hosting fee is a little bit investment. And as you scale, the gross margin for application layer software is like 96%, 97%, or even higher. So that is there. It is easy. But if you are working on new AI type of products and you're building models, you're experimenting different things, you may actually have no option but to have usage-based pricing, because usage will track with cost, but user will not track with cost. And additionally, what's happening is, if you're going to get their people fired, now you cannot charge by user, because their success is not going to be proportional to the number of employees in the company. And that may start happening even more. There was an article by this person, Jamin Ball, who is a sort of popular Substack author, and he had this article called now is user-based pricing dead? It may die at some point, right? There was somebody raised their hand. No? Okay. And then competitive action. So if your things may be fine, but if one competitor comes in with a new metric that is getting adoption, then you may have no room. Like a lot of these players that I spoke about, I think, I don't know, but I think Mixpanel and Amplitude are having some sort of price war. There are other people I've interviewed for my podcast, GitLab, and they had something going on. Or no, there was the same person was talking about Mandrill. It was an email sending application, and they had a price war with another company. So if you're having a price war, and if they are offering more innovative pricing, then you may have just no option. You just may have to move to something else or offer another alternative. These are sort of 6 things. I would say make candidate lists if you are in the process of figuring out your pricing metric, and then check across all of this and take a call of what you think works. Sometimes people just think about the customer. Sometimes people just think about themselves. So make a balanced decision of what aligns the value. And finally is implementation. Smaller companies, not that big a deal. Even the development team can handle it. But almost every interview I've done with pricing leaders at larger companies, and my own experience is, engineering doesn't care about pricing. They will never put it on the roadmap. And you can, we had our GM of the business unit advocate for a pricing change, and engineering still did not listen. And so you want to do all the fancy things, but fancy things will not happen. And because there is a lot of tech debt involved in this. And we tried to build a CPQ product last year, and we pivoted away from it. So now we're just doing pricing strategy. And I realized that it is not a great space to be in the billing, CPQ market, sort of instrumentation market. It is not figured out at all. And you do not want to take a decision that takes you years to implement, given how fast we want to move. Okay, so we've covered the most important things we've covered. Goals, packaging, pricing metric. You get this right, structurally it's hard to fail. After this, it is just about the price point. You take the hypothesis that you have formed, it's a judgment call, right? You will create a hypothesis for your price point. Either you will compare with competition, you will have some customer and market feedback across those packages, and then you can start testing. Options are survey-based approaches, especially if you have like a lot of customers, or primary research-based approaches if you are more enterprise buyers. In my course, we cover all of this in more detail, or also in the book. So if you meet with Akhil today, we have brought the book. So we cover this in detail, but basically, it is just about structurally force ranking, getting people to force rank answers and give you their range of how much they're willing to pay. The most common survey is Van Westendorp, where you say like above what price point your customer, that segment thinks you're too expensive, below what price point they think you're too cheap, you'll get a range. And you can get that through a survey mechanism or through live interviews. We've gotten good indication of what is the range that customers are willing to pay. For larger companies with more things at risk, you may want to do conjoint studies. My partner, who I teach the pricing course with, has run pricing at companies like DocuSign, Zoom, Squarespace. He loves conjoint. I do not. And my experience has been in more enterprise B2B SaaS companies. And that is natural. His experience has been in more online companies with larger markets. So depending on the nature of your market, your research and testing methods may change. Just know that don't start any pricing project with conjoint. Start with all of the things I discussed. And if you meet a consultant or somebody who's not talking about the other stuff, who's not talking to you about positioning, packaging, ICP, segmentation, run away, because we just closed a fairly well-known company, and they said we did this project with the top consultant in the valley, and they charged us 100K, but we are screwed out of the money, and there's no actionable things from there. So I'm very skeptical of conjoints myself. All right. Common issues in early stages, the first 2 stages of the goals. founders will start with good, better, best, and then not iterate or not analyze what's happening to those packages. Even if you start with good, better, best as a first step, you should still see what's happening with your pricing and try to iterate. Giving away too much on the free plan, especially the case with PLG founders, they will start by giving away too much. Then they will get stuck in sunk cost fallacy that, okay, I have all these free users, maybe one day these are going to convert, but I have nothing to give to the people who are going to pay me more. So you have to be okay to cut those people to get the more expensive people, or the people who will pay you a lot more. And they get very often an early stage company will get stuck in the old pricing when they're growing and not change. So this is common trends I've seen with completely early stage. Later on, companies will have mismanaged packaging that causes them a lot of friction. They may forget to think of upsell and cross-sell. And after a certain point, by the way, all of the companies that are IPOing, more than half their revenue comes from upsell and cross-sell. And in this market, nobody's growing. All of the money is coming from the existing customers. And this is important, not monetizing professional services. A lot of people will do the whole 9 yards for the customer and not monetize all of the professional services and different buckets of professional services. You may do creative, you may do implementation, you may do other stuff for the customer to make them a happy customer, but at some point you have to monetize that and not be in the red with professional services. And that services also has value. I'm working with another security company where the services piece is much more sought after with their product than just the product. And the customers desperately need the services. And if the services did not exist, this company could not think about the next step and think about IPO. So services should not be an afterthought in monetization. Okay, two examples of different stages. So early stage company, so this is my friend's company. He was a chief revenue officer there. I went to Wayback Machine and took screenshots. So earlier on, companies will say, no sale, no fee, no risk, pay only for the added value, right? This is from the website. Next slide. And this is the table. They were converting ads on retail company's website to increase the conversion on their product display pages. So they say, this is how much online sales that come from our company, this is how much you pay us. They had us all published earlier on. And next slide. Now, this was from a few years ago. They moved it to completely subscription-based pricing, platform-based pricing, with a lot of different bullet points or what they did, but it was nothing about performance anymore, right? People were willing to pay for them, and this drastically increased the amount of revenue that they were making because they went from being a risky bet to a sure thing, and so they did not have to do the things that they were doing before. That's one example of early to early mid-stage. This is an example of mid-stage to that IPO stage. So Zoom's example, and this is Jan, my co-author and the guy I teach the course with. So this example was that Zoom, as it was growing, had grown far beyond teleconferencing, had offered other things like Zoom rooms and a lot of other features. So they were going through this thing called SKU explosion. And everything was online, so customers were finding it hard to buy. Then COVID starts, and what becomes more important is sell faster. So this becomes a detriment at that point. So the change was, he did a conjoint study, and then he said, okay, these are the 4 plans, and we're going to simplify and add all of the add-ons to the plans so that the cognitive load on the customer is less, and then they just choose what works for them. And we have the case study in the second edition that we've printed. So again, examples of some case study examples. You'll find many more examples in the book. And so, top takeaways, always start with where you are in the company. Always start with when confused, go to your market and see who is my market, do I understand my segmentation and ICP. The price structure is much more important than the price point. The price point is always the last thing to consider. It's always contextual. The price point is always contextual. And most pricing problems are never pricing problems. Sales is complaining about pricing. Okay, why? We are discounting too much. Why are we discounting too much? Oh, because we created the wrong packages. Why we created the wrong package? Because we never figured out ICP. So the problem is not that the pricing was high. The problem is that you just designed it incorrectly, or there was some broader company-wide misalignment on who are we even selling to. So that is every pricing problem or big pricing problem that emerges in a company, the root cause is somewhere upstream. And finally, if your competitor does X, so what? Like, who cares? All right, so Q&A. Oh, sorry, resources. So this is a QR code for our course. We have the next cohort in October. And you want to talk to us, we do a free consult on pricing. Go ahead.
Typically, when you are going after a market which has a lot of competition, pricing benchmarks are sort of already set. Especially in mid-market and enterprise, the benchmarks of how a team wants to buy compared to legacy platforms are already set. Those pricing
Agree.
is not visible. What is the best way to benchmark against your competition?
If you're saying it's already benchmarked, then you would know the benchmarks, right?
I mean, the customer knows that this is how much it costs.
Yeah.
We don't know how much it costs.
So you ask the customer. So what is your question?
How do you benchmark against competition or pricing?
First, it will obviously automatically come out in the objection in your sales process that where you need to be, where they're expecting, and what is the benchmark. This is the thing about mental anchors that I was talking about.
I think one difference
Yeah.
in the US when you ask customers tell, in
Yeah.
India they don't. That may be the big
Yeah,
difference.
yeah,
Customers
okay.
don't tell competitors pricing.
Okay, okay.
In US they tell. At least our experience.
Okay, got it.
So some websites display their prices upfront, and some say contact us.
Good question.
Can you comment on that?
Yes.
Which one is
Yes.
right when?
So if you have more of a large market that you're trying to capture, which is homogeneous, then publishing pricing works because they are like each other. There may be some segment differences, but then you'll publish the pricing. This is like Slack, right? They are not doing a lot of direct sales, or this Netflix. But if you have a heterogeneous market where you have a PLG motion for this very SMB, individual user type of customer, and then you're selling to big banks like JP Morgan, then it's tricky. And especially if you're just selling to the big banks or like health insurance companies or healthcare firms, then do not publish, because every company is going to have so much impact on your revenue. And first of all, they will look at the cheap plan and they will like, we don't want to talk to you. And then between each other, there is no fixed requirement ever with such huge companies. So there is no fixed requirement, and you're trying to maximize, because if you have 50 companies in health insurance, that's your market. There are many companies that have just, that is their market. So you cannot ever publish pricing because you're trying to maximize every single person, and you're not trying to sell the whole platform. You're selling piece by piece by piece into that market, right? So think about how homogeneous or heterogeneous the market is and how big the market is. That will inform whether you should publish pricing or not.
So the reason we moved to outcome-based pricing from the usage of users because of the generative AI.
Yeah.
And if you could see last 1 year, right, the outcome of generative AI is changing itself by the nature. Second thing is the price itself reducing.
Yeah, price is reducing.
By the time we put something, right, the dynamic price putting that in our website, right?
Yeah.
Or when we speak with the customer, itself creates the uncertainty or the credibility of the organization.
Yeah.
Now that's the reason we are moving into outcome, and then because of the quality of the output which comes.
What is the outcome that you're driving?
So the outcome is driving is consider today the customer adapting. It's a B2B2C. Consider what is the adoption that customer can give it to their end customer that the chargeback comes. Eventually, the reason is because of the model price comes drastically last 1 year very down. So I cannot, because invariably the product cost decreases or increases.
Right.
That's where how you charge the outcome, or what is the structure, or what big B's are thinking, or Fortune 500 companies are thinking about this to take this sort of approach.
This is the leading edge right now. So there is no great answer. I mean, cost is reducing. That gives you more freedom actually for choosing your pricing metric. But AI-based products are not deterministic, they are stochastic. The outcome you may or may not get. Now, I don't know your product, so I won't go there, but Zendesk, I understand customer service, so they are saying per resolution, which is outcome. And they could have said per interaction, which would just be number of consumption, but they are saying per outcome. Intercom I was trying to say before. Intercom is also doing per outcome. But outcome is very hard to figure out. This is just going to be an experiment for now, because those companies will start to debate them. Like, what is an outcome? This case is not closed. Why are you saying the case is closed? So I'm saying it's at the leading edge. Outcome is at the leading edge, and it's not figured out yet. Yeah.
So we have per employee per month pricing. With generative AI coming in, the charges are very variable. Now, how do we price it so that we don't end up giving, if you're using any generative AI services or APIs, we don't end up spending more than what we charge.
Yeah.
So how do we make it very...
If you go to my LinkedIn, there is a webinar we've done. Okay, I think we're being asked. Okay. We've done a webinar on this topic. A lot of AI companies are doing something called 3-part tariffs. So when you have usage-based pricing, you have 1-part tariff, 2-part tariff, 3-part. 1 part is linear, 2-part is platform fee plus a variable, and 3-part is like a cell phone plan, 50 GB for $50, 70 or whatever, 100 GB for $70, unlimited for $90, $100, right? So that is what people do for predictability. And that we can, if you are doing, like if your point is that it's variable, that you can do something like a 3-part model. Most generative companies are doing something like that. We'll send you these many credits in this plan, and but you have to pay us upfront. It's not pay as you go.
But will it confuse the buyer that, okay, how much will I spend, how much will I...
So it will not. It will consume them less than if it is completely pay as you go. But if you're saying you have to give me $5,000 for X amount of credits, that is $5,000. And then how you use it, you're going to have a metric. Yeah.
They are not sure in the organization
Right.
how it will get used. So
Right.
they get
Right.
very confused on
Right.
making it variable.
So that's a good objection. Then you can think if there are other metrics that can work, right? This is the whole game. So does employee work? Can it continue? Will you make money? Will your margins be there? If you will not make money, then you will have to find something else that will also work for them. And one way to solve the objection of the predictability is move to 3-part tariff for any given metric. But you could explore if there is another metric that they are able to budget with. Because yes, customers will say, okay, I don't know how to do my budget. So question to ask is, how do you budget for software like this?
So that's what we have implemented, and yeah, it gets confusing to explain of how it works, but once they get a hang of it, then the stickiness is way higher.
Okay. You mean the 3-part structure?
The credit, yeah.
Credit
Buy
structure.
upfront and
Yeah.
then keep using, and then they roll over, like we sort of play around with that. It is on the start of it very confusing, but
Yeah.
we're trying to figure out, so we have to track now.
Sounds good. Okay.
Great talk. I actually feel that most founders, they take either pricing too lightly,
Yeah.
or they think it's too easy.
Hmm.
I think later on they realize that it requires a lot of consideration and everything. So one question I wanted to ask was, in terms of price metric, if you can't pick just one metric, how many metrics are okay to pick? How many is too...
Yeah, so do not be afraid of picking 2, but everything that you add adds complexity in your cycle, right? How is the customer going to be able to do the math with 3 metrics? Even I can't do the math with 3 metrics. I can't even build a pricing calculator with 3, and none of the sellers I've worked with can do 3. So 3 I have never seen, but 2 is feasible. Like you can do 2, and maybe we are going to a world where 2 may be a requirement with user base and usage base. The only thing I can say is that do not be limited by 1, but know that everything that you add will, if you have sellers, it will confuse them, more work for them, more work for the end customer. So every decision you make reduces your sales efficiency. So it's a trade-off decision.
One final question.
Just an addition to that same question. Is it okay?
Sure. We just have probably time for one.
Okay.
So we are an AI platform on which enterprises build what we call AI workers. So we price it per AI worker per year or per month, right? And then we put limits of the number of conversations per second that AI worker can have, or just to compare it to the human at the work.
Okay.
Right. So any thoughts on that? Or
I don't know what the question is. I don't know the question.
So the question is, do you think this is an appropriate strategy where we are pricing per AI worker 36,000 per year with limits on how much the AI worker can do, but not limiting it to functionality? So you can custom build your AI workers on the platform.
I can just tell you my intuitive, I don't know your business, but if it's these new categories, customers need to learn the category. So the question really is about, does your customer, how complex does a customer feel? I cannot answer. I give you all the consideration, right? But we'll have to talk more to. Okay, okay.
I just had a question on the actual price, the absolute rate which you said, right?
Yeah.
So when we are looking at pricing and setting the rate, there are two aspects which we are looking at. So one is what value do we provide? Okay, so for example, we save developer time. So when we help companies build integrations, so if you are building one integration, it will take 4 to 6 weeks for you for an engineer, and you have to build 10 in 1 week, right? So there's this inherent value which we bring to the table. At the other end, there is the competition, right? So how do we kind of look at optimizing this thing? Like, because we believe that the competition is probably charging less right now, and we could charge more.
Depends on what so it's a good question. It depends on what is the perception of your customer, because many times we are adding a lot of value, but if it is a competitive space, then what did I start with the whole session by saying? Software is always a deflating market, and it is cannibalizing itself all the time. So you may be adding value, but if the customer is going to your competitor, you may not be left with any option. Again, I'm not in your business, but it is the question is, can you differentiate your value to the customer such that they know, yes, this is different. This is value that we want, it's worth paying more than others. And maybe, are the others even in their option set? But if you are in the spaces that are hotly contested, they are all sort of going down in price. So they are all being cannibalized. And there may not be any other option but to price cheaper in those spaces.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That
Thanks.
was super insightful.
Cheers.
Thank you.